Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call this meeting of Independent School District 544 to order. Clerk, can you establish a quorum for us, please?
Kirby Anderson.
Here.
Natalie Knudsen. Here. Melanie Cole. Absent. Matthew Lemke.
Here.
Missy Hermes present. Stephen Vegas.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda passes. We will now be moving into our public meeting with the world's best workforce, and our presenter here tonight is Carrie Thompson, our curriculum coordinator.
This is an annual report that's required in all school districts in our state. And after, I should say pending your approval, this evening it will go on our school district website. And then we have about 3 weeks to get a summary of this report filed with MDE. So that will be our next step. On the inside, I'm just going to go through the page numbers if you can follow along on those. This report has to have 6 components in it, and the goals that you have set up as a board are based on the goals of the world's best workforce. So you'll see those on page 3. And just for our public viewers, as a district, we're accountable to be sure that the children entering kindergarten are ready for school. We're to have our 3rd graders reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. We're to be closing achievement gaps between all ethnic and socioeconomic groups of students. We're to have college and career readiness before students graduate from high school. And then our goal is to have all students graduate from high school. Page 4, for example, is a little more detail on each of those goals. As far as expecting all students to be prepared to enter kindergarten, we use a district-developed kindergarten rating tool that teachers give in about the 2nd or 3rd week of school, and it measures a student's ability for listening and speaking, for reading, for social and emotional growth, their physical development, their experiences with math and science, writing and arts. And this is a skill score that's based on professional experience and opinion of the teachers. We've used this for several falls, and the group that entered last fall at this time, the class of 2031, had about a 1/3 of students who were considered to be exceeding or very secure in their understanding and prepared for kindergarten. About 47% of those entering were partially ready, and about 20% were not ready for kindergarten by the teacher's estimation. However, we carry on and we work with all the children who come.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
This is sort of going through. That 20%, and I suppose for data privacy, you can't necessarily, is age ever a factor within that 20% in the sense of, are we able to desegregate that data out to say that X amount are below, are not 5, or just turned 5, or early 5-year-olds?
We do look at that.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and that commonly happens.
Happens.
They mature and they're strong kindergartners by the end.
Sure.
Achieving 3rd grade literacy, we use the MCA test, the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, as a measure for that. The state average of pupils proficient on that particular exam was 55%. And in our district, our Cleveland Elementary was 60%. And then we have some 3rd graders in our IQ Academy, our online school. And that group of children was 39% proficient. Then we are to close achievement gaps among all ethnic and socioeconomic groups of students. And we also use the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments for this. And that test is given in 3rd grade up through 11th grade. And it includes, and we also include the access test, which is what is given to the English language learner students. And we include the MTAS test, which is used for some special ed students. So all of those tests are what would be considered state accountability tests. The data for this is on the top of page 5. We do have some discrepancies, particularly in the area of math. Our own Fergus Falls students were scored a little lower than the state, the English language students, the white students, special ed students, and then a group of Asian students. However, the district did exceed state in all of the reading measures. The next goal is in the area of career and college readiness before graduating from high school. For this particular measure, we look at the 8th grade math MCA test, because that's a good predictor of how a student will do on their ACT test as they're planning to go on to college. It's also an indicator of whether students need developmental coursework. The state proficiency on the 8th grade math test last spring was 56%. In our district, our students in 8th grade were 67% proficient. At the Kennedy School, they were 76%, and then IQ Academy, 18%. That's 8th grade math. Another indicator would be our students' performance on the ACT test. And this is the students who were seniors last year, the graduating class of 2019. We had, I want to say 147, but I'm not seeing that number right here. It may be in another place. Minnesota was first in the nation last spring among 17 states that offer this test to more than 90% of their students. And our state average was 21.4 composite, and the Kennedy School composite was 21.8. So that's something to be proud of. Another goal is that all students graduate from high school, and the state uses a four-year rate. They take the same cohort of students who enter 9th grade and keep them together as a group. And in 4 years, they should walk across the stage and be a graduate. However, the state data is about 1 year delayed by the time they publish it and they gather everything. So for the class of 2018, the district rate was 68.8%, but then we have to consider that we have some students who continue and they carry on with our ALC and IQ school particularly. You'll notice that there is also differences between each of our 3 high schools. I just mentioned district rates, but we have 3 high schools here. We have the Kennedy School, the ALC, and the IQ. At the very bottom of the page, we also have a local goal from our board, and that is to improve communications, two-way communications, and there are several examples of that listed at this page and the top of the next page. Examples of communications are parent conferences, increased use of technology. Many teachers have established websites. Our principals do monthly radio spots. Our superintendent was doing at least monthly, sometimes weekly articles in the Daily Journal. I'm on page 6 now at the top here. There's a fall newsletter that goes out to all members of our district, not only just parents. The district has partnered with Ottertail Telecom to broadcast several sporting events and as well as school board meetings. Many teachers use Google Classroom, so that's available to parents. Many of our departments also have advisory committees that pull in community people and asking their advisement and their expertise in those areas, and that's a good number of community. Excuse me. Then on page 6, at the bottom, we get into some of our building site level goals. So far I've been talking about district goals. Both McKinley and Adams, as well as Cleveland, those 3 elementary schools, had the same goals this year, and that was to increase student and family engagement, and then to really focus on communication. And they've each reported some specifics here about their communication. They chose to really work on encouraging better attendance with students by contacting parents, developing relationships with parents, and really keeping an eye to that. And I think you'll be pleased at the number of contacts that they kept track of. Between McKinley and Adams, we had about 750 communications with parents that were related to something about attendance. 2,345 contacts from those two buildings with positive, encouraging, and engagement type conversations that build positive relationships. Well, it is a goal to have every student in school at least 95% of the time. There's some detail here about students who seem to have excessive absences, 15 or 20 absences in a school year. On page 7 is some of the Cleveland data. They did the same sorts of things. The teachers individually reported between 10 and 100 communications with families regarding attendance. And then additionally, they reported tallying 50 to about 350 communications with families to increase positive relationships, student engagement, student accomplishments, those sorts of things. Teachers did have mixed reactions to the results of their efforts as it related to attendance. That's an ongoing challenge area. The Kennedy Secondary School, their goals were also to increase intentional family engagements, and they had particular percentage increases that they were looking for in our state reading, math, and science tests. The middle school teachers were looking for a 12% increase over the state proficiency rate, and the high school was looking for 15%. Those are pretty big growths goals for 1 year, but that's what they chose to do. And then the ALC, Kennedy High School, and the IQ Academy were all looking for improvements in graduation rates. You'll notice in the detail here that all areas exceeded the state proficiency by 5 to 20% when we look at the whole group. So they were pleased with that, but the growth rates were not across the board 12 or 15% per subject and per grade. We use local data. We also looked at our local data for graduation rates. For the class of 2018, we looked at our 4-year goal, or 4-year cohort class coming through, and that was an 87% graduation rate for all of those schools combined. IQ Academy and the Area Learning Center had goals of improving graduation rates. They both developed improvement plans focused on increasing graduation rates, and you'll see their rates across the years. I did talk to them about where is the 2019 rate, and in their circumstance, the graduation rates are more complex to figure out because it matters what school district and what school students spend the most of their time in. So they can't tell you exactly because it's portioned out from school to school, and it may or may not be us where they spend the most time. So they are very sensitive to their graduation rates and working on those, and you perhaps have already heard about their ESSA plan for improvement.
So Terry, a quick question about that kind of relates to the overall graduation rate. So when somebody's researching our school district to maybe move to the community, which rate is published? Is it the 68% with the ALC and the IQ Academy factored in, or can they see the the breakdown of the four
Our
different-
local internal reports are not published.
Oh, they're not?
The official graduation rate is what the state publishes.
Okay.
And there's always a one-year lag.
Okay. And then, does the state publish them on, sorry that I don't know this, but does the state publish it as a whole, or do they break it down by district?
They break it down by district and down by school.
Okay. So is
That's-
that number the one that factors in all of the IQ and ALC?
If you look by
everything?
district, yes.
Okay.
But you
All
can
right.
also look up Kennedy, you can look up
So you
the
can
Area
break it
Learning
down.
Center. You can look up
Awesome.
any
Okay. school
school building or district in the state, that's all public
Okay,
on the MDE site.
that's good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, page 9, the effectiveness of instruction and curriculum. In our district, curriculum improvement is an ongoing process. We have curriculum committees that are composed of teachers, administrators, and specialists. And though one or two may be rising to the top in areas of intense focus, any of them can be convened at any time if we have issues. The committees work to evaluate what's currently being taught. They review research. They review what would be best practices in instruction. They study district data of all sorts, but particularly assessment data. They evaluate the resources that we use. They study state and national academic standards. And they make recommendations to a community group that is called the District Curriculum Advisory Committee. And one school board member sits on that. It's the majority of community members, and they provide advisement back to the teachers group. And then the information comes forward here from your school board member, who's a rep on there. This committee meets 6 times a year, and these people commit to a 3-year term, with many of them wishing to have a second time around. So you'll see the names there. I think it's important that we recognize and thank our numerous advisory committee members who serve all over the district. Component 4, strategies for improving. There are several programs that are listed here that we have within the school to help students attain academic goals. Those include interventions for students who are not proficient. We have response to intervention programs, Title I, Homework Health, Achievement and Integration Programming, STAR Math, which is a second math class per day for students, English Language Learner Support, Otter Adventures, and REACH programs. We also have Saturday School, Summer Credit Recovery. The middle school particularly has challenging things that happen during the school day. Foundation courses to allow credit recovery. Many teachers use the Google platform and Google Classroom to connect with students for clear communication. On the top of page 11, you'll see several programs that are available on our school website. Those are live sites if you want to see what those programs are about. On page 11, effective practices. Our teachers have been in professional learning communities for the past few years, small groups of teachers who get together and study effective instruction or to learn new things, do professional development. Last year we worked on planning the PLCs that are happening this year, and those are focusing on differentiated instruction. These teachers meet monthly. I also meet monthly with teachers in kindergarten through 8th grade to talk about the fidelity of their instruction, to deal with any curriculum or instruction issues. For example, today I was 4th grade out at the Prairie. Sometimes we meet up there. Page 12. Having students ready for kindergarten. This one is a little more challenging because we don't have access to all the children in-house before they show up at kindergarten. But we do have programming that is available for children from birth to preschool age through early childhood, family education, and school readiness opportunities. And we do cooperate with the United Way Child Visitor Program and the County Caring Connection Family Advocate Program. This preschool also has an advisory committee, another place where we bring in community input. I think we've talked a bit about third graders being ready, being proficient, third grade ready by the time they finish third grade. One of the measures we use leading up to that is the Northwest Evaluation MAP testing. We do that in kindergarten, first and second grade, 3 times a year to measure growth, to be sure that our children are making progress toward that cap. And last year, our reading growth exceeded projections in both kindergarten and first grade, and the second grade group met 85% of their projected growth. And page 13 is a little more detail on closing achievement gaps. This chart is different than the one that was earlier in this report, in that it compares each group with the non-group. So for example, the English learner students with those who are non-English learners, special ed students with those who are not special ed, so that you can see the gaps. In our district, we have the largest gaps between our English language learners and our non-English language learners, and that's true for both math and reading. We have ongoing gaps between special ed and non-special ed, and we have gaps between our children who have free and reduced price lunch and those that do not. And those are both for reading and math. At the bottom of page 13, all students ready for career in college. We do have some honors coursework available for students in grades 9 and 10 in English, social studies, and science. High school students have opportunities for college credit with 18 different college credit-bearing courses here in the high school with concurrent enrollments. They also can participate in PSEO classes. We have 6 advanced placement classes in English, math, social studies, art, and music in the Kennedy School. On page 14, we also have 9 articulated college credit. These are specifically with various colleges so that when students complete an articulated course here, they can move into advanced standing at the college that we are articulated with if they choose to go to that college. Those are typically community colleges or technical colleges, but we have had students gain credit by those articulated courses taught in-house here. Then we have the Project Lead the Way Engineering Series in high school. We have a group of students who start that in grade 9 and they can carry through high school. They also can test at the end of those courses and receive advanced standing through the University of Minnesota in their engineering program. We have a senior mentorship program with students who have an interest in working with children, most likely in teaching, and they go out to work to assign sites in our elementary buildings, or in this building 2 up through grade 6. And then looking at aspirations after graduation, when the students take the ACT test, they complete a survey about what they are hoping to do. And at the Kennedy School, you'll see that we have 49% of students intend to get a bachelor's degree. That's before they start. 18% of students plan to go on and do some graduate study. 14% looking at professional level degrees. And only 2% have other. Not quite sure. We have 3 high schools in our district that lead to a diploma. The Kennedy School, the Area Learning Center, or IQ, and you'll see that 4-year graduation rate there for Kennedy is 95%. The ALC is 19%, but they do, if the students stay with them longer, those numbers increase into the high 30s. IQ Academy has the same experience there. Students may be transient, and their numbers to increase if we look at 5- and 6-year graduation rates. In the district, we have a staff development committee that assists all staff, not just certified teachers, assists them all in professional development, and you'll see the committee members there. They meet once a month to plan professional development. They process teacher requests to attend particular sorts of trainings. They plan for the future. They work with the mentorship program for probationary teachers. Then the other thing that the state is watching is that we have equitable access to excellent teachers for all of our children. And you'll see here that over 99% of our teachers meet licensure compliance. We probably have one part-time person who's on some sort of a special permission with a different kind of a teaching license. Our Title I paras are compliant with meeting all of their requirements. We have 53% of our teachers with bachelor's degrees, 46% with masters. Our teaching staff has changed over the last few years, and we now have about a third who've been teaching less than 3 years, about a third who've been teaching 3 to 10 years, and about a third who have over 10 years of experience. The state also wants to be sure that they would desire that our teaching staff ethnicities are proportionate to our student ethnicities. And we recognize that we are not. Our student population is more diverse than our staff population.
That's an issue all over the state, isn't it, Carrie?
Yes, it is. But we acknowledge that because they wonder about it every year. Other questions? Thank you.
Just one question on the MCA testing.
Uh-huh.
I know that the state periodically begins to change the test or revamp the test. Does that happen now over recently, or has it now been, for?
Not recently. The next one that will change is the science test.
Okay.
No, they just came out with new standards last spring, and they're still in the process of rulemaking. I don't think that test will change until the spring of, I think it's 24,
Okay.
23, 24.
So it's just so many years, and then they do the change, they
They
adapt, or?
They put the standards in place, and then we have access to use them before, they haven't even developed the new science test.
Sure.
So we'll migrate to new standards, and we'll still probably be using the old tests
Okay.
for a short time. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, moving on to our next item is we have a resolution of acknowledgements. And clerk, I think we'll offer that resolution.
Yes, I'd like to offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Thank you to Steve Brimhall and Minnesota Motor Company for the donation of a Sunscope machine to the auto department, to Kim Langbin for the donation of a percussion kit to the music department, to Patricia Douglas, Tricia Grove, and Jason Marquette for their donations to the Otter Angel account, an account created to anonymously assist families unable to pay for student meals.
You offer that resolution.
I did. I offer that resolution, move for its adoption.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Natalie Knutson.
Yes.
Matthew Lemke.
Yes.
Missy Hermes, yes. Stephen Vigasa.
Yes.
Kirby Anderson.
Yes.
Do I have to say Melanie Cole?
Okay.
Because we already acknowledged that she was not here.
The resolution passes. Perfect, thank you. Moving on to reports, we have Kirby Anderson with the 544 Education Foundation and Finance.
Okay, nothing from finance today, but the District 544 Education Foundation did meet just this last Thursday, November 14th. Some of the highlights of the meeting, we talked about Give to the Max Day. That was November 14th, and so of course we encourage people when they were giving to the max to keep the 544 Foundation in mind. We also have a major donor newsletter going out now. It was 5 years ago that we did the first major donor campaign, and that was a 5-year campaign, so many of those are reaching the end of their 5-year commitment, and so we're sending out another newsletter to try and continue to have those folks support the foundation. Just a reminder that there is an Otter Apparel online store, and a portion of the proceeds from selling that apparel will go to the foundation. So that is online. We did talk a little bit about fundraising. The foundation has a staff person, Mandy Feuder, who has helped various groups not raise money, but collect the money, doing the accounting work. Hockey Association, for instance, tennis courts, the athletic field. And so we discussed just how much of her time is spent doing that and how we should account for that in the future, if we should have some sort of reimbursement if it gets to be, it's one thing if it's only like 5 donors for a lot of money, but if it's 300 donors for where it's spread out, it gets to be a lot of work. So we discussed that, so there's some different options we're looking at there. At the Veterans Day program last week at the high school, there were quilts of valor that were given to 3 veterans, and one of those was Bob Duncan, who's on the board. So that was nice that we could recognize Bob. Bob, of course, was former superintendent here at in our district, and his stepson Joe Dinsmore also received a quilt. So that was a good program. It was a great program, I think. Would you say? Yeah. And then, not part of the 544 thing, but I sat in on the Cleveland School Veterans Day program, and that was pretty darn good too. So kind of fun to. It was quite a different program. They actually had all of any of the kids there who had a parent or another relative or family member that was a veteran. They got to stand up and say who it was, and of course a lot of those folks were in the audience and they got to stand up. So very much more personalized and smaller group. So that was pretty cool. So that's our next meeting is December 12th, and so Jeff and I are on that group. And Jeff, just a reminder, it'll be there 11 o'clock that day. Thank you.
Any questions for Kirby? Thank you, Kirby. Melanie Cole is not here, so we will move on to Missy Hermes for staff development and curriculum review.
Okay, the Staff Development Committee met on Monday, November 4th, and it was a very good and productive meeting. One of the things that we talked about was the January in-service days for staff development and what that is going to look like. And it looks like one of the things that's very important is the new Minnesota Department of Education relicensure requirements on cultural competency training. And so they've talked about various different ways that might be handled, and it looks like it's going to almost be an all-day process, because it's probably going to be about 6 hours of training. And so probably a good portion of the teaching staff will be doing that because it's necessary in order to renew your license to have that training. So that'll be a big part of the January in-service. And then other options that we still talked about, there's a follow-up session for Envoy. And remember, we had an Envoy presentation several years ago, and we had Envoy training here, and this will be a follow-up for teachers that are still using it, or for maybe for new teachers that haven't had a chance with that. Also then, we went through this committee is reviewing and developing the rubric on how you'll request staff development money. If you want to attend a workshop, what is that process going to look like? So it's going to be a little different in the future, but not this year. We're maintaining the same request procedure. And then the final thing that we went through was the October training requests, and this is kind of exciting. A lot of teachers are going to be doing some great trainings, and I think that we're down to about $2,000 left in that budget of $30,000 for training. Any questions on staff development?
Kind of goes like that every year, doesn't it? Where it seems like all the money goes out in the first couple
Well,
months?
you know, for a long time, that budget was $20,000, and then then it was 25, and then in this last contract, it went up to 30. So, but it's great to see people excited about
Yep.
attending and learning new things. Okay, then for the curriculum review committee, we've actually had 2 meetings since the last time someone reported. So there was a meeting on October 21st, and the departments that reported at that meeting were world languages, so Spanish and French, and world cultures were all reported on. And they fairly recently got a new curriculum and new textbooks, so it was interesting to read what they've been able to do with that. And then the next department that reported was science, and this is an ongoing issue, not just for our district, but for others, because of the difficulty in getting the science standards approved, and then to get them going. And so it looks like we won't be getting a new science curriculum again this year, that's going to be postponed till the next year, even though it's been postponed many times. And I know that people are talking about the textbooks, what they look like and so on, but we just need to wait until we know what those standards are before we spend money on curriculum. So instead, it looks like reading and math and, the reading curriculum is going to come first before science. Do you want to add anything?
You know, I'll just add on the October 21st, the world language, well, I guess I can have both, but on the world language one is, because it's considered an elective, there's always and it's, you know, our high school is student driven, so they were just talking about their numbers and working through that and stuff like that, and so I think that's always a challenge. I think for anything that's considered an elective, it's always a challenge to get your numbers up. But they did have us use this, what they call Quizlet.
Yeah.
And so you have partners and you use your cell phone on it, and so we were all scattered and you didn't know who your partner was to start, and then you were supposed to guess, you know, what the word meant in Spanish and French, which, you know, my group actually did really well, even if I don't know it very well. So we guessed well because each one had a different deal, and then so it was kind of fun. It was definitely interactive, and it was kind of neat to do, and we had a group of 3. So everybody, there's a couple groups of 3 in that, so it's really neat. And I think on the science, I think it's not only the new standards, but some changes within the actual curriculum and how it's presented, and changing the different levels for which grades and where they'll be taught. So it's actually a flip.
Right.
And so there's definitely some uniqueness to this change in the standards, so.
Grades 6 and 8 are
Yeah,
flip-flopping.
are flip-flopping. So it's, you know, so it's definitely a challenge. And it's gonna be a challenge for our district just even to implement this. In the sense, we'll get it implemented, but it's just that first couple of years of implementation. Just making sure everybody gets the standards that they're supposed to have covered. And so it's gonna be a little bit unique, but it was a good presentation.
Mhm.
I was very impressed with them,
Yep.
both.
I think they presented last spring too, and it looked like we were closer then. Okay, and then the Curriculum Review Advisory Committee also met last Monday on November 11th. And we had reports, we listened to the World's Best Workforce report too from Carrie. And there was a lot of good input from the committee members. And again, like Carrie said, it's important to thank those people. Some of the curriculum review, those are some of the longest meetings outside of the school board meetings that I attend. They're very, very good meetings. And then the other report that we had was from the music department. And it was 2 people from the choral music department that reported. We didn't have anyone from, from instrumental music. And so I think that would be important sometime, but they gave us interesting statistics on how much of an increase there has been in vocal music participation. Of course, part of it is the 5th graders are here now too at this building, but they said that in the last 3 years, there has been an increase of 225 students in the choral music program. And then they also talked about new technology that they have purchased, and we didn't get a demonstration, but they're, I'm trying to think what that is called, but anyway, they've gotten some new instruments, and then some of their accomplishments going on to All-State Choral, and then the high school men's choir participated in a new choral festival at Concordia College in October. And that's thanks to a new choir teacher that we have who was reporting, Dane Foyland. And that's called Brothers Sing On. So that was exciting that they're finding new ways to perform and get experience doing that. They have a new piano accompanist as well that's working with the middle school choirs, and they said she is amazing. Yeah. And then, like I said, because we only had people there, we just got some numbers from band, and they have, of course, their middle school program is really growing as well. And, yeah, and they talked about some of their performances and things that they're going to, and also orchestra. This is interesting, they talked about having more and more places to perform in the school as well. Like they talked about how great the acoustics are in the in one of the hallways, so that sometimes you'll see middle school students singing in the hallways just to hear that great sound. And then there's also a new group called Strolling Strings, which is the orchestra group that meets on Wednesday mornings, and they're preparing popular and folk music for community outreach, and they said that anyone who needs music for a community event can contact them, and that they'll be playing at Lake Region Hospital on December 12th. So, anyway, good report.
Any questions for Missy?
Okay, the name of that curriculum that's online is Quaver. Quaver.
Thank you. Natalie Knudsen, Wellness, Policy, and Buildings and Grounds.
I wasn't at the wellness meeting last week, but I did get the notes, and I'm kind of been in touch with Jen Kohorst, who leads the meeting. So I think there's no secret that food service is going through a bit of a remodel and expansion, and the goal is to increase access to healthier options, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and then just increase that availability to the elementary schools and figure out the process so those kids are also getting some fresh, healthy options. The goal here at KSS is to have most of the structure and setup finished by the first of the year. They are also working on a breakfast grab-and-go cart that has some healthier options for the students in the morning. Free and reduced numbers are up, so thank you to everyone who kind of pushed that at the beginning of the school year. And then meal participation in general is up from what it has been in the past, so that's good to see. From an employee or staff wellness, they're continuing to do a monthly challenge of sorts, and the November challenge is based around gratitude, which I think kind of ties into Thanksgiving and giving back. There's a teacher over at Adams School that's offering yoga 1 day a week for staff right after school. There is a pre-diabetes class that's being offered on site for staff. And then here at KSS, they're gonna offer just a salad bar only option pricing thing for staff members who just wanna come down and get salad bar along with their lunch. And they're hoping to do that at all of the other schools, but they need to get the salad bars at all the other schools active and prepared for that. And then just a couple 2020 things that they're looking at is incorporating Yoga Calm into the classroom. So they're gonna be looking at possibly writing a grant next spring for that. And then Jeff and I met with a couple of other people with the Thrive Initiative and kind of paralleling the culture survey that just went out to a bunch of the staff members. We're looking at how we can incorporate some of those resilience tools and start the work as soon as we can. So, lots of great things happening. It's an active culture. Good stuff. And then, policy has not met and buildings and grounds has not met.
Any questions for Natalie? Thank you, Natalie. From my reports, Lakes Country Service Co-op, we did meet in November, and I think the highlight that I will talk about is that, and this has been in the paper, just talking about the Fergus Falls Lakes Country Academy building. And it's a level 4 facility, and that is on time and on budget, so you hear those two words, that's always a good thing. So, and that it should be ready to go, and so, so that's been a lot of the work that's been going on for, I know Lakes Country Service Co-op themselves. And then the rest of it is just a lot of standard things that we're going through, but I would say that's probably our big highlight of that meeting. Minnesota High School League, they have not met. I believe they will meet in December, and so I have nothing to report for them. So my report is going to be short today. Any questions? Stephen Fergus, Legislative Liaison, and meet and confer.
I don't have anything for legislative liaison. Meet and confer, met and conferred. And I should, maybe just educate a little bit on what this, because every meeting is, we're meeting and conferring, so it's kind of a silly name in my opinion. But basically, it's a committee designed, and this is a very common in school districts, for the superintendent to meet directly with representatives of staff in various buildings and a school board member at the meeting, and basically just to to problem solve, to look at maybe some ongoing issues. One of the big things that they talk about is the school calendar and how that's structured for various things like spring break or snow days or whatever it might be. And so at our meeting, we talked. Jeff opened up and talked a little bit about what I just said about what the expectations were for meet and confer, just to kind of make sure people have a voice. And we talked a bit about, let's see, one of the things that we spent a lot of time on was what to do when there's no subs especially with the elementary schools. The high school, they find a little bit easier to cover, but it's tough when you have a full class, and I will assure you that kids get educated even if there is no sub. They figure it out, but I think the more, what the discussion was is more or less just let's figure out a process, a step by step, what do we do in this situation. I should also say, we got the cameras rolling, I guess, is that we could use more subs. So if anybody's on the fence of substituting, it's pretty low obligation. It's as high or low obligation as you want it to be, and I would definitely contact our district office if that's something that anybody's interested in. Let's see, what else did we talk about? Another thing that we talked about was certain class sizes, and especially at the high school level, there's certain classes that might have more enrollment and some that have under enrollment, and how do we bridge that gap and making sure that some teachers aren't overwhelmed and some aren't sitting there with not enough students, and are we going to find a solution in one meeting? No, but it's just a place for the the staff and the reps of each school just to bring that up, and I'm sure in a future meeting that'll be addressed as well in a work session or something as well. So I ended up having to leave for pick up a kid at the when we talked about the school calendar, but it's more just maybe Jeff, you could talk a little bit about the spring break and what you guys discussed in that part.
So essentially, it was suggested that maybe the district could look at an every other year calendar with a spring break in it. Part of the issues we discussed with that concept, the main one being, does this potentially cause a hardship or burden for our families that struggle socioeconomically, in that we know that it is difficult to find childcare, and lacking in the ability to find childcare, then a parent may have to take time off of work when they're already struggling to make ends meet, and is that in the best interest of our students and families? The other thing that would be worth investigating on that regard is, and this is anecdotal from what I've heard from other districts, but when school districts have a spring break, the assumption is that families will all take their break when it's scheduled on the calendar. The reality is that families take their breaks or vacations when it suits their own schedules. And so in looking at that as a solution, you just have to make sure that it's a solution for the problem you think that you're solving. The other concern that I would potentially have with it is that with our contract, you receive 3 personal days per year on the teacher side. They can carry 2 over, giving them a maximum allotment of 5. If you had it every other year spring break, my question would be, would most people then carry over 2? And so they're taking a 5-day vacation on the opposite year of the spring break. And do we create more difficulties in trying to fill our sub positions because of it? There are some safeguards in the contract where the district can limit the number of people using their personal days, but and maybe that's enough to resolve that issue. But it's good ongoing discussion anyway.
And that's all I have for that report.
Okay, any questions for Steve? Okay, Mark Maston, financial audit.
Fun stuff.
Well, I was going to say, just after going through a world's best workforce report and several board reports, man, it's an exciting night for information. And I will have you note that my report's the biggest one of them all. But I did give you the Cliff Notes version. There is a sheet there with a yellow highlight on it right at the front. And so what I did is actually just grabbed a few pages out of the audit to highlight and let you know what's going on. First of all, just to let you know too that the audit serves basically 2 purposes. First of all, it's an assurance for the school board that things are doing okay, that we're not hiding money, that we're not doing shenanigans, okay? The other piece of it, of course, is it's an autopsy. What happened last year? So it's two things in one. The first thing, first page on there, it highlights what is found on page 3 of the audit, and there's like a 2-page document where the auditors gloriously explain all the things that they did. But this is the most important sentences of all. It says, in their opinion, it's an unqualified statement, which means that's the best you can get. Things are hunky-dory, whatever thing you want to say, okay? So that's good news. That's again, your assurance that we're doing things right. On the next page is a page that I actually pull out from the state of Minnesota and include here in the audit, and I think this is one of Matt Lemke's favorite pages in the audit. It compares Fergus Falls with the rest of the state. And there are 495 school districts and charter schools in the state of Minnesota. And you can see that we are 69th in terms of population. We were 72nd. And in fact, it wasn't too long ago, we were like 75. So our enrollment growth is staring you right there in the face, is that we're starting to pass some of these other school districts around the state with our enrollment. That's awesome, okay? The other thing that's not quite so much is out of 495 school districts, we rank 476th in terms of revenue per kid that we bring in. And we're 455th in total revenue per kid. So that includes things like buildings, construction, you name it. But that 476 is the educational piece, and that one really stares at you, and you wonder, why is Fergus Falls so low? And Fergus Falls is a regional center. We're fairly affluent. We have a very low minority, And so all those things add up against us, because other school districts in the metro area with high concentrations of low economic status, of high amounts of diversity, they get additional funding, whereas we don't. And so we're just, in essence, we have to be an extremely efficient school district to survive. And not only that, but on page page 5 of the World's Best Workforce, Carrie mentioned that Minnesota was number 1 in the state for the ACT test, and Fergus was above state average. So bang for the buck. It's right there. We do a tremendous job here at our school district of producing results for a very minor amount of money per kid. And so hats off to a lot of people, the community, our teachers, our support staff, yeah, even our administration. The next page is page 15. I just highlighted one number there, and that's the unassigned fund balance. And that's at about just shy of $6 million. It was 13, 14 years ago, I believe, that number was about $2 million in the hole. It has taken us a long time to get to this point. And there has been talk about, within some people saying, oh my gosh, the school district has tons of money now. But the reality is, our fund balance represents about 19.4%, and state average is about 19.8. So all that's telling me is we're right where we need to be. We're state average. So if anybody gives you guff about, man, you're sitting on a pot of money, the reality is you're not. You're right where you're supposed to be. The next page, it says page 17 on the bottom, shows you that how we did in each of the funds. General fund went up by $1.17 million, which sounds huge, but on a $30 million budget, that's like 3%. So 3% variable on your budget. Food service went down about $44,000. That's because we spent some investment on equipment to make that thing work. So it's a one-time thing. And that fund balance, we don't want to get too high anyway, because then the state starts throwing other restrictions on it. Community service went up about $172,000. I haven't checked out everything as to why that is, but primarily that is ECFE. And by this time, we had hoped, today, we would have hoped that we had a new facility in early childhood, and some of the monies that we are banking would then be used to pay for extra staff and so forth. But of course, we're now a year delayed on that project, and so this fund is building up. They have approximately a $450,000 war chest actually sitting there waiting to be used for the early childhood program, which is awesome.
Nice.
Okay. Debt service is also up about $188,000. Again, $188,000 out of $2.7 million. It's not a major amount, but this is important to let you know. As that fund balance grows, it gets to a point where the state then says, we're going to take that back and give it to the taxpayers. So it's not like you, as a school district, get to use those dollars. Okay? But just be aware that that fund also was in the hole here a few years back, and we were able to get it out. The next page that I showed you is page 19, is comparing budget to actual. And state sources I showed there is up $366,000. That's because we have more kids. I generally budget very conservatively on kids, and enrollment continues to grow, so it exceeds our budget, and that's a good thing. Probably a little more disconcerting is our expenditures were less by $600,000, but we overspent on regular ed, underspent on special ed, and you can see the mix there. But primarily, the reason for the savings is also, you'll see it, buildings and grounds, or the sites and buildings as they call it here. I backed off thinking that we would use some of that money in the Heritage Building during that remodel, which didn't happen, so now it's gonna carry over and we'll use it on Lincoln. Okay? The next page is just for your information, because I'm assuming it's gonna happen here pretty soon, is on page 33, just shows you your debt schedule. And some of your bonds are coming off as early as January of '22, but the bulk of it will be about that January of '27. So we have a few years left on our bonds, and then after that, everything gets paid off, and we get to do new and wonderful things.
Mark, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
The 2017 one, is that, okay, because it matures, that's why it's still at 5%, because we did that refinance.
It's refinance, yeah.
But it didn't, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what it is. Okay?
Good.
The next page is a student activity. The growth and fund balance there, we're not immune to that either. The various groups did not spend all of their money, so it went from $70,000 up to $122,000, which is good. So all in all, the audit was looking very, very good, but of course, the auditors always have to find something. And of course, they found 3 items. The first one is the preparation of financial statements and schedule of expenditures of federal awards, including material adjustments and material weaknesses. And they said during the course of our engagement, we proposed material audit adjustments, they really didn't, that would not have been identified as a result of the district's existing internal controls, blah, blah, blah. All right, the next item, and I'll get back to that one later. The next one they found is on the next page. It says improper use of student activity funds. And it says during the course of our engagement, we noted an instance in which a student activity fund was used to purchase contracted services. And I'll get into that one next, or after this next one. And then the third finding that they found was, and by the way, these findings aren't like huge. They're like, hey, we found this stuff you should be aware of. And so the third and final item they found was during our engagement, we noticed an instance in the student activity funds where disbursement lacks supporting documentation. So then we go to the last page and you see my letter back to them, which is part of the requirement of the audit. And the first finding where they said we didn't had all these material weaknesses and whatever, it's an annual thing. We do it every year, and it's because we're not large enough to have specialized people who do nothing but federal programming and blah, blah, blah. They said they had to make a material adjustment on their audit, and the answer is no, they did not. I can show you the entries that they gave me. This is just boilerplate stuff, and we just don't meet a certain size, so no matter how good we do, unless you hire a person and a half or 2 people who are dedicated solely to the $200,000 that we get every year on, or it's more than that, $600,000 of federal funds that we get, you're gonna get gated. The second item was because we paid a disc jockey for Snowball. And basically what we gotta do is take the fund out of student activity, give it to the school district, and cut another check to the disc jockey. And then we're in compliance. Okay? So we missed a step in one instance. The other piece was where we didn't have a receipt, and in one instance. We had a section speech contest. Somebody said, we'll open up the concession stand, we'll sell stuff, we'll give you a printout of how much your amount that we paid, and you'll pay it. But it wasn't a detailed invoice. And that's, of course, what they want. So, did we do the service? Yes. Did we transfer the money? Yes. But we didn't have that one little slip of paper. So, that's how detailed these auditors can be at times. And so, again, not a major thing. So with that, this is the audit report. It is now online too and on our website so that people can view it at their leisure. Overall, the school district did very well. It is where it should be in terms of fund balance, and where it should be, and even, I think, on test scores, which is the most important. So with that, any questions? I know all of you will go home and read this.
I already did. It's already read.
Good, good. We'll take the test tomorrow. Any questions?
Any questions or comments? I will just say that the audit firm did give me a call and they just asked if I knew of any concerns. That's the standard thing that they ask, call a school board member. But then after that, he did say, just wanted to compliment you, Mark, and the staff for your work and how you work with them. So it's always nice to come to Fergus and that we have a professional job. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You still awake?
Last report or Superintendent Drake.
Well, you might not make it through this one. First off, this is American Education Week, and so it's a timely excuse to celebrate a great staff and all the contributions that they make towards our students and families and community. It will give us another opportunity to recognize Amy Besky as Fergus Falls Teacher of the Year. And then we will also recognize some people as Support Staff of the Year. And for tonight, I'm just going to read the list of nominees, but there were 16 people. So any staff member could nominate another support staff member for this award. But Brian Warren, Jenny Hicks, Kristen Shaky, Becky Thole, Becky Cantrud, Sarah Campa, Michonne Samuelson, Nancy Sletton, Meg Garahan, Trish Martin, Tara Price, Diana Wiedrick, Erin Cole, Leah Starzl, Michelle Carlson, and Lance Wells were all nominated. And the celebration will take place after school on Wednesday, 3:45 KSS cafeteria. So we're looking forward to celebrating American Education Week and recognizing the work of a lot of great people. Just wanted to do a shout out to everyone that was involved in the Veterans Day program here at KSS. Really a classy event, lots of great music, very honorable. I thought the student behavior in the stands was outstanding, which is something that I always look towards. But the community should be really proud of the job that was done in honoring our veterans, and thanks to the community for showing up and being part of that. Last Friday afternoon, I was in Otter Tail City with the Family Collaborative. They were doing some strategic planning, trying to set a course of action to provide support to both schools and our families in the county. And the first one that will be developed is a different approach to truancy. And so we're working with a group of consultants to try to adjust some practices. And I say we, meaning Otter Tail County school districts and other supportive organizations to hopefully make a positive difference on the number of absences that our students are accruing in a year. Wanted to congratulate the cast and crew of Guys and Dolls.
Fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful production.
Yes.
Lots of hard work and many hours went into putting that on, and a very, very enjoyable evening. And then just as a reminder and invitation that it is now officially concert season coming up. And so between our various vocal groups and instrumental music groups, we will have a full slate of concerts for your entertainment coming up. And our winter sports have started practicing, and they'll be engaged in contests just around the corner as well. So unless there are any questions, that's my report.
I just wanted to add, Cindy Rund and Michelle Danielson and the whole crew over at Cleveland, they did a great job too.
Yeah.
I got a chance to talk to them for a little bit afterwards, but I didn't get a chance to talk to Dean afterwards, but he did it. And I know there's a lot of support and a lot of folks on staff and admin that help in that. And so they put on some nice programs.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Any other questions for Superintendent Drake? thank you. Moving on to our general consent items. We have the minutes for the October 28th board meeting, bills and treasurer's report. Kirby Anderson.
Yes, we did review the bills, and I'll report as follows. Our current balance is just over $11 million right now, and this is kind of one of the high points of the year as far as that balance goes. We just did get some money in from the county, so that contributed to that, and but now, as we get into November, December, we'll have, what was the term? More money going out than coming in.
Yes.
So, yes, so we'll see that will change, and that's just the normal ebb and flow of our balance. As far as the bills themselves, we did review, we had a few accounting things as far as busing that we talked about, nothing too major. We talked a little bit about, we paid for the roof over at Roosevelt Gym, cleaned up some projects with Comstock, and had architects working on Lincoln School, sizable amount of money going to ISD 935, which are our special ed services.
So co-op.
Yep, our co-op. They serve 8 schools in the region, so I got a little education on that. And then we had some bond expense for Lincoln, and I think that was about the only ones that we highlighted. And Mark gave very good explanations on all those, and so I think that concludes my report. Everything seems to be in order.
Thank you, Kirby. Personnel, Elaine Jenke.
Well, as you're looking down the personnel, you might think it's the beginning of a school year, because that's really what I felt like the last couple of weeks here. So support staff resignations, I won't go through all the details, you have them in front of you, and it'll be posted on our website. But as far as resignations, we have Zach Lewis, paraeducator, Tricia Reimer, special ed paraprofessional, Becky Cantruth, paraeducator, Tony Cantrell, special ed para, Ashley Thompson, noon hour supervisor, Kristen Rowland, noon hour supervisor. And you'll see as I'm hiring, I kind of, some people are switching and then moving on to different, more full-time positions, such as some of these noon hour supervisors. Support staff termination, Jessica Head, who's was a computer lunch operator. Support staff hires, Karen Starnes, noon hour supervisor at ALC, Ashley Sortland, special ed para, Ashley Thompson, John Hagee, also special ed paras, Tony Cantrell, noon hour supervisor, Scott Samuelson, district-wide mechanical grounds custodian, Abby Deloy, very different pronunciation versus how it's spelled, but it's Deloy. She's 3-hour lunch computer operator at KSS. Krista Hexum, health para, the long-term substitute at Cleveland, Karen Harper, noon hour supervisor. And then you'll also notice that there is kind of, but wait, there is more. Under new business, we have a request for additional 2 special ed paras and a part-time special ed para, and then hires underneath that request. As far as head coach hires, we have Lynn Roberts and Josh Scharnberg, co-head Nordic ski coaches. And under a head coach resignation, and actually it's a retirement, is Renee Erickson, head Otters varsity volleyball coach. So, and then further down here, I'll just continue on since it's kind of the personnel pieces, our 2019-21 master agreement for our teachers, and then agreement between the school board and our finance director, which will be Blake Stoltman, and that's effective January 2nd through June 30th. And he'll be training with Mark Maston during the month of December. And so I request approval for these personnel changes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the general consent items as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, general consent items pass. There is no old business, so we're going to move on to new business. Our first item is the request for 2 additional full-time and 1 additional part-time special education paraprofessional positions. Based on the new student enrollment, McKinley 1 part-time, Adams 1 full-time, I take it, and
Yep,
Cleveland 1
that's right,
full-time.
yep.
And the hire of Sherry, is it Lyon?
Lyon, yep.
Part-time special education paraprofessional for 4 hours and 15 minutes a day at McKinley, effective 11/14. And Christine Rowland, special education paraprofessional at Cleveland, effective 11/14. Do we have a motion to approve that?
It says no action.
Oh, no action.
That
Oh,
was
it's just
a copy and paste error. There's action.
There is action. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Steve, is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion or comments on it? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2 is a joint resolution with the Fergus Falls Education Association honoring veterans. Whereas the Independent School District 544 has veterans in the employ who have served in the armed forces. And whereas the district and the Fergus Falls Education Association wish to recognize all those who have given so much for their country. Be it hereby resolved that the School District 544 and Fergus Falls Education Association honor and appreciate all veterans for their dedication to our country and service to others. Will somebody offer that resolution and move for its adoption?
So moved.
Kirby offers it, okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you,
Bless you.
Natalie.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Matthew Limkey.
Yes.
Missy Hermes, yes. Stephen Vigasa.
Yes.
Kirby Anderson.
Yes.
Natalie Knutson.
Yes.
Resolution.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 3 is just, and this doesn't have no action, it's the first reading of the FY19 Fergus Falls Public Schools financial audit that Mark presented. The 2018-19 Fergus Falls Public Schools World's Best Workforce that was presented by Carrie Thompson. Do we have a motion to approve that?
Yes.
Do we have,
So moved.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item number 5, we have the Employee Assistance Agreement between Lakeland Mental Health Center, Inc. and the Fergus Falls Public Schools, effective January 1st, 2020 to 12/31/2021. And I will note that there was no financial increase to that.
The dollar
that a
amount
2-year
per visit,
agreement?
it was a 2-year agreement, yep, and the dollar amount from the previous 2 years was exact same as these future or current contracts, so which I was, yeah, pleased.
Nice. Mhm.
So would somebody offer that motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6 is the 2019 Fall Memorandum of Agreement between the University of Minnesota Crookston, UMN Crookston, and ISD 544 for the college and high school program. And this is a standard yearly motion. Will somebody offer that to approve?
Okay, I'll do it.
Thank you, Gary. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Any discussion?
They did increase theirs, didn't they? Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, this
They've
is,
done it
yeah.
again.
We did it again.
Yeah.
And I know it's important to offer these programs for our students, but I just feel like every year they do this.
Yeah, I know.
And Brad Strand's the one that's teaching under this contract.
Well, and he's fantastic, so I'm glad we have him, but
Yeah, I agree with you on the financial part of it. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item number 7 is you have the 2019-20 and 2021 Public Transportation Agreement between Otter Tail Coaches, Inc. and Fergus Falls Public Schools, ISD 544. Do you want to make a comment on it, Mark, just real quick?
Just renewal of their contract, it was 2.25% each year, so.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve that contract?
so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do you have any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8 is a resolution establishing the combined polling places for multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. So be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 544, State of Minnesota as follows. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for school district elections are those precincts or part of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district which have been established by the cities or towns located in whole or in part within the school district. The board hereby confirms those precincts and polling places so established by those municipalities. Item number 2 is pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11, the board may establish and combine polling places for several precincts for school district elections not held on the day of statewide election.
Just go down the following.
Yep, the following combined polling places are established to serve the precincts specified for all school district special and general elections not held on the same day as the statewide election. And so we have combined polling places, 1, which is the Fergus Falls Public Library, Community Room, 205 Hampton Avenue, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Do I have to say the rest of them?
No, I just say that
Okay.
in places.
Combined polling place 2 is the YMCA Community Room, 1164 Freiburg Avenue, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Combined polling place 3, Minnesota State Community and Technical College, 1414 College Way, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. And combined polling place 4 is Big Wood Event Center, 925 Western Avenue, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Pursuant to the Minnesota Statute Section 205A.09, polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the same day as a statewide election between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 o'clock. Oh, 2? Should I say 2?
Pardon?
7.
Between the hours of.
And
Okay.
8 a.m. Yep, okay. And 8 o'clock p.m.
Yep.
So with that, will somebody offer that resolution, move for its adoption?
I offer that resolution and move for its adoption.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
And if anybody would like to see the full resolution after this, they can look on our website and it will be there tomorrow, correct?
Yes, and it's an annual event that we do this, so each year we have to, we can change it at this time. So this is set in place now for the 2020 school, or 2020 year.
Roll call, please.
All right, Stephen Biggessa,
Yes.
Kirby Anderson.
Yes.
Natalie Knudsen,
Yes.
Matthew Lemke.
Yes.
Missy Hermes, yes.
Resolution.
Motion.
Thank you. That concludes our regular school board meeting. Our next meeting will be Monday, December 9th, 5:15, right here at the Outer Community Room. We will have a public meeting, technology plan and internet safety policy. That will be Monday, December 9th, during the school board meeting, right here at the Outer Community Room. There will be a public meeting for the Fergus Falls Public Schools Tax Payable 2020, Monday, December 9th at 6 p.m. right here at the Outer Community Room. Following this meeting, we will have a work session to talk about capital outlay projects, attendance summary, staff survey, and strategic planning. With that, will somebody move for adjournment?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.